donors. Canada needs more blood and plasma donors than ever before because we're saving more lives than ever before.
Help Canada reach 1 million new donors by 2030. Book an appointment today at blood.ca/plasma and experience what you get when you give. Canadian Blood Services. Who's saving who?
As the auto show comes to town, so do the offers at Alta Infinity. This month only, come in and see our auto show stopper, the all-new QX80, the SUV that exudes luxury. Lease from $639 bi-weekly, plus get $2,000 auto show bonus cash. You don't need to visit the auto show for affordable luxury. Just visit Alta Infinity Woodbridge on Highway 7 West, east of the 427.
Part of the Zankin Auto Group.
Hey parents, it's Ontario teachers. We need to talk about some concerning behavior. Disruptions in class, bad choices, even bullying. No, it's not your kid. It's Doug Ford. By cutting $3,000 per student in education funding, he's created big problems in schools, taking away the supports that students need and leaving them stuck in overcrowded classes. The problem in schools? It's Doug Ford. A message from the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario.
Here's Natalie Spooner, one of Canada's greatest hockey players.
It's been a long journey from a backyard rink to a gold medal podium at the Olympics, and there are some people I haven't thanked yet who helped me get there. So to the people of Ontario, especially OLG lottery players, thank you for your support on my journey with Team Canada.
When you play the lottery with OLG, you help support communities and programs like Quest for Gold, which helps high-performance Ontario amateur athletes like Natalie cover training costs like travel and accommodation. Must be 18 plus. Play smart.
Discover more value at Loblaws for the big game. Get split wings or bone-in skinless chicken breast for $4 per pound. Offer ends February 11th. Shop in-store or online today. Conditions apply. See flyer for details. Loblaws, proudly Canadian since 1919.
At Reliance Home Comfort, your peace of mind and trust is our top priority, and we earn it before we even arrive. We're proud to have over 150,000 five-star reviews, all thanks to our core beliefs to treat your home like our own and always offer honest advice. So if it's smarter to repair your furnace than replace it, we'll tell you. But if you do need an upgrade, you can get $1,200 back on a featured furnace. Call on the team bringing you real savings, care, and comfort.
Call on Reliance.
Conditions apply. See website for details.
Thinking, Mira?
Callum, Valentine's Day makes me think of barn owls.
Interesting.
They choose one partner, one and only. They don't ghost after 2 dates.
Okay.
So this pendant has one round created diamond.
Brilliant. Modern yet classic.
Callum, people should be more like barn owls.
The one and only pendant for your one and only, starting at $199. Spence.
Across from Scarborough Town Centre, near Square One in Mississauga, and by Colossus Theatre in Vaughan.
Wayfair's winter clearance is on. Right now through February 16th, get Wayfair's best deal since Black Friday with fast and easy shipping straight to your door. Save up to 70% off everything home now at Wayfair.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Hey, it's Blake Murphy.
And I'm Matt Bonner.
Join us weekday mornings at 11 as we break down all things Toronto Raptors.
It's the Raptor Show on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and wherever you get your podcasts.
CJCL Toronto.
Welcome to the JD Bunkis podcast. Disaster at the Olympics. The other great one, Marie-Philippe Poulin, sitting on 17 goals at the Olympics, one shy of the Olympic record, was injured yesterday. Finally, I tune in for the Olympics. Finally, I decide, hey, you know what? It's time to give things a go. And the most important player, the team captain, gets hit awkwardly into the boards and sustains an injury, which I don't know. Some people are saying it's a knee injury. I thought she hit her head pretty hard. Looked like she could have hurt her shoulder. Looks like she could have hurt her back. It just did not look good. This is not one where you say, oh, yeah, that's a stinger. You're going to move off of that. The only positive news is that Canada has time before the gold medal game, and frankly, it's a near certainty in women's hockey that we are going to get the United States and Canada in a gold medal, unless for some reason there's the ability for the two of them to face each other ahead of time, which I don't imagine there is. But my God, what a truly gutting moment if she is not able to return to this tournament. Obviously, this is about the team. Obviously, there need to be other players that fill her role, including like Natalie Spooner, who I believe is brought as the 13th forward for Team Canada, was playing in that game and did step up into the first line. So the team is very deep. The team has a lot of star power. But, man, there's a human element to this of not potentially watching her get to close out her final, what is, I'm assuming, her final Olympics on her terms. She's one of the greatest athletes that this country has ever produced. She's someone that I believe a ton of people have a ton of faith in when it comes to being able to produce in high leverage moments. And these are high leverage games. And this is a huge spot for her. And so I really don't have an opinion on this. I really don't have a take on this other than my one hope is that she doesn't rush it back and that we actually don't see her until maybe a semifinal game, but possibly just a gold medal game, and that she's not overly compromised. That when we do see her back out there, if in fact we do see her back out there, that if it is against Team USA, we're not watching it and going, oh, she's not right, she's not right, she's not right. Because, yeah, we'll always obviously remember the great moments with great players, and she has so many, and especially in Olympic Games, that it's not going to be obviously legacy defining, but we've got short memories, and we get bombarded with a million different things. And I don't want one of the lasting or enduring visions that I have of Marie-Philippe Poulin's illustrious career to be a hobbled version, gutting it out against the United States, doing everything she can in short and sheltered minutes to try to provide a little bit of a spark because she just is not able to get right. So, yeah, Canada-USA today, I think it's at 2:30. It's obviously must-see TV. Everyone's going to watch it. The winner of this game is going to be, I would say, largely inconsequential, given that this is all for a medal. But it's going to be a little bit harder to watch, at least for me, and I think a lot of different people, knowing that Canada is missing their captain. And what a just absolute drain on this tournament it would be if she's not able to come back healthy. So thoughts with Marie-Philippe Poulin. Hopefully she's going to be all right. Hopefully she returns. Hopefully this isn't a major thing. But watching her come back to the bench and the excitement of going, okay, at least she's back on the bench, thank goodness, to the way that she skated off the ice in what appeared to be a tremendous amount of pain. Didn't love it. We are just ahead of they're not just ahead of, but we're going to be talking about the NHL trade deadline throughout this break. It's really going to be the only topic of conversation. And when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs anyways, and they won these games heading into the break, and I mentioned already that my opinion on this is that the team should not be changing their course of action. They should be selling. This is not a scenario in which they should be looking at wins against the Calgary Flames and Vancouver Canucks and an Oilers team that was desperately trying to get to the Olympic break healthy and say, well, this is a true indicator of who we are. There's an argument to be made that the Boston Bruins are not exactly the most difficult team to catch. The Florida Panthers have basically played themselves out of the mix. And so the idea of you having to compete with a multitude of different teams to get to the playoffs, I think is actually feels a little clearer. That being said, if the Leafs don't decide to sell, if they do decide to zag, if they come back from the break and they beat the Ottawa Senators and the Florida Panthers or the Tampa Bay Lightning, I can't remember. I think it's 2 or 3 games before the Olympic break, and it's some cluster of those teams. If they were to win 1 or 2 of those, my strong opinion is that they will deeply regret, and people will look back at this and say that was actually a sliding doors moment for the Toronto Maple Leafs. If they decide to hold on to a bunch of players, I don't think they're going to hold on to all of them. To me, the Bobby McMahon case seems open and shut. If you can get a first-round pick for Bobby McMahon or even an early second-round pick, I I can't envision a scenario where they walk him to free agency. But yeah, there's a few times, like we do this as fans. You look back on moments and you say, man, if this thing didn't happen, that's a big sliding door. And a Stanley Cup postseason that represents the potential for a new champion, because I don't believe the Florida Panthers are going to be in it, with a bunch of teams that are going to be hungry to buy, a date that historically teams get a little crazy and splash around first-round picks with very little regard, much like the Toronto Maple Leafs did a year ago. It would be nuts to me if they passed on this opportunity. So James Mirtle of The Athletic is going to join me, and yeah, we're going to talk about the deadline plans and then who stays and who goes. James Mirtle, what's up, buddy? How we doing?
Hey, JD.
Great to have you back. Great to see
your
face again. Yeah.
I think it's been 2 weeks, but it feels like longer than that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. You got to see the Maple Leafs live in Vancouver, right? You went as a fan?
In Seattle. I wasn't. I was in the press box. So
I thought you went as a fan to the Vancouver game. I thought you wore a jersey. I was like, oh yeah, this guy.
No, I did. I did a rare road trip. Seattle and Vancouver were the games I was at. So
yeah,
Seattle, we got to pronounce them dead, and then Vancouver started their resurrection again. So
this is the thing, man. I just can't. I just can't do this. I can't keep having people try to change my mind about who this team is game to game. I think, from my standpoint, we have a good enough sample that they are not a contender, and that the idea that they could make the postseason is not impossible to me. But the idea that a group that has as many flaws as they do, whether it's their blue line and their inability to break the puck out, whether it's been the up and down injuries, whether it's been, I would say, some inconsistent forward play from a lot of their different pieces, whether it's been, honestly, even like some of their goaltending hasn't been as sharp as it was a year ago, that banking on this group to make some kind of a deep run or holding back at a trade deadline instead of making sure that you can get back as much as possible, barring, really impacting your long-term future or your ability to compete next year, I think would be a mistake. So the first question is just kind of simply that, which is, Elliot Friedman has reported that winning streak did not change things. Are you hearing the same thing, that Toronto is still looking to be a seller at the deadline, regardless of the outcome of the games that they play in ahead of it?
I'm a little bit, I think if they keep winning games, it's going to change the degree to which they're willing to sell, if that makes sense.
Of course.
I think you're right. I think your read is right. Like Bobby McMahon, no brainer, move off of him. But if they come out of this break, there's actually 6 games until the trade deadline. So there's some time here. It's I got it right in front of me. It's Tampa, Florida on the road, Ottawa at home, and then they've got Philly, who's been really struggling, New Jersey, and the Rangers. So
a really tough, a tough slate in terms of if you want to sell. That's not the teams that you want to see outside of Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could win. They can easily win
4-1-1.
Yeah, they could go 4-1-1 in those 6 games, and then you're going to be squinting at it and like, well, now we're only 3 points out. Or as you said, Boston's vulnerable, but there's just such a big pack of teams that you got to compete with. The Leafs' chances of making the playoffs right now are like 20-21%, depending on what model you look at. So I think what you're saying is right, where it's 20% chance to get in, but then what are your chances once you are in? Yep. You're probably going to get Tampa, who you've beaten in the past, but at best, that's a 50-50 series, and it's only going to get harder after that. So you'd be betting on a no-hope plan if you don't do some kind of a retool, recalibration here. And what I would try and do at the deadline is move off some pieces that you don't feel like are going to be part of the solution next year. Mm-hmm. Is there a world where you can trade a Simon Benoit or an Anthony Stolarz, Dakota Joshua? Probably not. But at the deadline, that's what you want to be looking at, right? You go to the desperate GM that needs a goalie or that wants a physical winger that misses out on the other pieces that are available, and you say, hey, what do you think? Mm-hmm. And maybe you can open up even more cap space. Maybe you can get back a 3rd or a 4th round pick, and you've got even more flexibility next year.
I spoke with Jason Buckley yesterday, who's our senior prospects writer here at Sportsnet and a former director of amateur scouting for the Florida Panthers. I asked him about the depth of this draft class. He mentioned that this is one you want to be in on. This is one where you want to have as many bullets as possible between 20 and 40 because there isn't a significant drop-off between that group. And for the Toronto Maple Leafs, if you can be acquiring a bunch of those pieces, whether or not you draft or whether or not you trade in order to bolster your group for the following season, that would be my strategy right now. And so if there are players that are involved, like I know you're mentioning the Simon Benoits, which aren't getting you that kind of return, to me, the more fascinating discussion is whether they're going to cut into guys that are still under contract who could matter for the team next year, but they feel like they could potentially upgrade. Because, like, if we're looking at this holistically, the biggest question for me is, okay, if you're selling pieces from your blue line, how are you going to put a group of defensemen back together next year that are going to allow you to compete for a Stanley Cup, right? Like, I think that we kind of universally agree, no matter what happens, I doubt it happens at this deadline, but during the offseason, there's going to be a push to trade Morgan Riley at this point, right? Like, do you see a scenario where he's returning short of him just outright refusing to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs or anyone other than Toronto Maple Leafs?
I mean, it's hard to read right now. We don't know who the GM's going to be, and we don't know what this. But yeah, I mean, it feels like there finally needs to be some kind of a harder conversation than the one that happened this last offseason. And but I mean, he holds the hammer. So the question will be, who's the GM, and how willing are they to get ugly with it to try and make it happen?
Yeah, my point
But
there.
I think it needs to happen though.
Yes.
You know, there's going to be they need to come into next year with a much better blue line. So the question is, what you're asking is, if you move off of a Ekman Larson, even if you're getting a first round pick, or you trade Carlo, and you're looking at maybe moving off of Morgan Riley, who's left on your blue line, and how does it get better than what it was this year?
That's where I'm going. Like, the idea is, okay, you would move Simon Benoit for a very low acquisition price just to move off of the money and get some picks back. Sure. You want to move off of Morgan Riley in the offseason. The idea is not that you're trading him for another defenseman that you're going to rely upon. The idea there is that you're moving off of the money, essentially, and probably taking back some bad money in order to do so. If you're trading Oliver Ekman-Larsson or you're trading Brandon Carlo, you've now removed 3 guys from your team that started the season in your top 6. That's a tough idea to get around if you are the Toronto Maple Leafs saying this is a retool and not a rebuild. And it's why I'm probably pretty dubious about the idea that they're going to sell one of these defensemen at the deadline outside of Simon Benoit, who, again, is an easy guy to replace because of the way that he's played this season. So the way I want to do this today, because, like, and I guess I'll start with the Morgan Riley thing, is 1 through 10, 10 being the highest, being 100%, that they move off of a player at this deadline. I would say, before we get into that, like, Morgan Riley this offseason, what would you put it at 1 through 10? 10 being 100% he's gone.
I don't know, maybe like a 7, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, that feels about right. So, again, we are working under the premise that during the offseason, they are way more likely to move Morgan Riley. What do you think those odds are that they move off him at the deadline?
0?
Yeah.
Is 1 the lowest, or is 0 the lowest?
Well,
Like,
you can go 0 through 10. Yeah, 0% is definitely a percent.
That's where the no move is going to come in, and it's just not going to happen for him. You know, he's cut a house here, and he doesn't want to go anywhere. So I think that one, to make it happen, is going to have to be some long discussions about what are you open to doing, really, and that's an off-season discussion.
Yeah. Okay. 1 through 10, or 0 through 10. Sorry, you've changed the game. Look at you, you diva. You already changed the game. Bobby McMahon.
I think it's probably pretty high. You talk extension with him, you see what happens in these games here, and if you feel close enough. But with the number that's rumored out there of $5 million a season, that makes me nervous, because I think market value, look at what Bobby McMahon's done. I think he's more like a $4 million player. But if you're going $5 million with term on him, you've never seen him be successful in the playoffs. I think you sell high. And I don't know if you can get a first round pick, but you might be able to get a first round pick. The tricky thing with the first round pick is not very many of the contenders that would want Bobby McMahon have a first round pick, unless you go to 2027. So, which I think for the Leafs is, yeah. So maybe it's the talk out there is people think he's worth what Kiefer Sherwood got from San Jose when they picked him up from Vancouver, and that was 2 second-round picks, which I think is a fine trade for the Leafs to make.
I think if you got an early second-round pick in this draft and a second in the following for Bobby McMahon, you'd sign up for that immediately over even 1 first-round pick in 2027.
A lot of the contenders don't have an early second-round pick, right? Because their second-round pick's going to be at the back of the. So it might be, a mid-second rounder and a late one, or 2 late second-round picks. So. I know it's not ideal. I think you try and get the first round pick. I just don't know if Bobby McMahon's going to get that done or not.
Well, that's the tricky thing about the Edmonton rumors, right? Like, everyone has already basically put him in an Oilers uniform. They're like, he's from here and they need him. Like, okay, but Edmonton doesn't exactly have what Toronto needs. The only reason why I would assume that McMahon has the asking or the price point that we're talking about right now is like what we've all brought up, which is you can slide him into your team without having to get out the scalpel and cut out something else of significance. It's just like he's an easy fit because of that contract, which would, to me, say, yeah, there's a real value in that. Even if you do have to re-sign him, the idea that you can just staple him into your group without removing somebody else is huge.
Yeah, I mean, the Leafs have all their retention slots, and I think anyone they trade out, they got to retain 50% on the deal. And
Yeah.
so for Bobby McMahon or Scott Lawton, or even Simon Benoit, if that's a guy you're trading and you want to retain on, those are contracts all of a sudden become less than league minimum, and they're so easy to fit in. And it's going to be harder for the contending teams with the playoff salary cap, and it's going to matter more that you get that retention, you get those low numbers. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting players you don't want to sit in the playoffs. So I think that absolutely adds some value. And all of these years that the Leafs have been paying that extra fourth round pick to get the retention on, they should potentially be the beneficiaries of that this year with the guys they're trading.
100%. And that's the other part of the Bobby McMahon one before we move on to other guys. Like, because we're doing the Edmonton, God, he's so perfect for Edmonton thing, I don't think that we've had a very good discussion yet on what the market would actually look like for him, how many teams would be actively involved. Like, do you view him as someone who has a big market because of that pending free agency, or is it something where it is actually kind of a limited group, but all I guess you need is two dance partners in order to drive the price up?
Yeah, I was actually looking at this on the weekend. I think Colorado could be really interesting for him. You get him up there playing with Brock Nelson, or they could use some forward depth. Obviously, they're stacked at the top of the lineup. I think that there's 4 or 5 teams that are interesting for him, and if they miss on maybe one of the sexier pieces, that he's kind of their second or third option.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be prudent for the Leafs to wait down to the last minute the way that the Bruins did last year. Wait till 2 days before, put some pressure on those teams that are feeling like we need to do something. Everyone knows how jammed up it is, and maybe someone gets desperate enough to give you a first round pick or a prospect in a second, or some kind of a package that when you look back at it a year or two from now, you're like, they got that for Bobby McMahon. The Leafs have to try and get some of the wins where they took the losses last year. They need to be on the other side of that. And I think he's an attractive enough piece that could be someone that another team makes a mistake on.
I got to tell you, though, the idea, it's like a double-edged sword with the waiting game. Because the longer you wait with these players, the deeper your lineup is, the more potential you have for, like, I really do believe that this team post-Olympic break is going to look pretty good because they were worn down. I think that they were, quite frankly, beaten up by the attention that they're getting, which is a lot of negative attention. That hockey will be very exciting at the Olympic Games. People will come back. Dudes like John Tavares, who, like, man, Tavares was not moving so great. Carlo had a really tough go. McCabe was having a really tough go. Like, there's this, yeah, exactly, nice. There's a scenario where the Leafs get healthy. They come back and they look like the team that went on that wonderful post-Christmas stretch where they were winning a bunch of games, and they tricked this front office again into thinking like, hey, you know what? Maybe it is just Benoit and McMahon that you're moving off of this roster, and that's it. Keep the rest of the pieces together. The longer you wait before you make these trades, the more likely it is that there's less reason to sell, and yet the longer you wait to make a deal, the better the prices might be for your players. So it's just the leafiest thing ever. Okay, so Scott Lawton, he feels like the other guy where, you just outlined the scenario with McMahon. You're possibly talking about a contract extension, but it's also a little bit more complicated with him because of the minutes that he's played this year, and I'm not sure Scott Lawton views himself like he's clearly a team player who's going to do whatever it is that you ask of him. But if he's a free agent and he has his choice of be a third-line center on a contender or be a fourth-line center on the Toronto Maple Leafs, I don't know. I would imagine that he's not giving some kind of a hometown discount. He's in a similar situation to Bobby McMahon where, given his age and his contract status, this might be his best shot at actually cashing in 0 through 10, the prospect of trading Scott Lawton.
I think it's relatively high because while they want to get the extension done, I just don't know if they're going to get to the number that makes sense because you're 100% right. I mean, for him, I think on the open market, July 1, he's getting a big number with real term on it. And are the Leafs willing to do that right now? I think, for his part, it probably doesn't make sense to extend unless the Leafs are doing something that's kind of goofy right now. And why would the Leafs do that? So I would put that at probably around a 7 that Lawton gets moved. I think they're going to try. They're going to see how close they get. They're going to see how much they can do on an extension. But, if the right number for Bobby McMahon is 4 million, how high can you go on Lawton and still feel good about it at his age and with the role that he's playing? 3.5? If he'll sign for 3.5 million with some term on it, I would be totally fine with that. And you want him to be one of your standard bearers and one of your leaders and all those kinds of things. But on the open market, with so many teams needing a center,
yeah.
And again, I also think that he potentially could get you a first round pick. I know he doesn't have as much term as last year, but there's going to be a team that's going to want a center like him. There's a ton of teams that want a center right now. You play matchmaker. Minnesota needs a center. Montreal needs a center, and there just aren't going to be enough of them available for teams to acquire. So I think he's probably similar asking value as McMahon, 2 seconds, maybe a first if someone gets desperate. And if you're getting that and the asking price on an extension is really high, I think you have to do it. And we'll see, we'll see what the stomach is for management to really start pulling the team apart, whether or not they deal Scott Lawton. I think is really going to be a big question for them.
Honestly, I think that if they got 2 first-round picks for Scott Lawton and Bobby McMahon, everyone would look at that deadline as a complete success, regardless of anything else they did. Like, truly, that would be a huge injection to this fan base in terms of the way that they feel about things. And honestly, obviously that takes away a lot of their talent. And I don't believe they're a contender if they were healthy. I don't believe that they're a contender if they were to make a trade to acquire someone. But the idea that the Leafs missing those 2 guys couldn't push the Boston Bruins for a playoff spot, and that you end up in the best of both worlds where you push that Boston pick a little bit further back in the draft, you potentially get into a postseason, you lose in a first round, you get to test a little bit of your group. Like, that's not totally foreign to me, just taking those 2 pieces out. It's only when you start to get to the defenseman layer where you're saying, hey, you take those 2 guys out and a defenseman, like a Carlo or an Ekman Larson, now you just have no shot because there just isn't going to be enough talent there.
I guess the question is, are you trying to dance in both directions at the same time?
That's
right?
the mistake
Should you
if you do that.
You should probably just rip the Band-Aid. And I think that they should be aggressive in selling here and trying to, I think if you can trade Ekman Larson, I know it hurts you next year.
Of course.
But that's a problem for the offseason where you're going to have to remake this blue line, and you're never going to get more for Ekman Larson than you are now. I mean, Ekman Larson feels like it. If you can get a first round pick for him, I think you got to think long and hard about that, because he's not going to be able to do what he did this season again. This is a one-off year. He's going to get older. You're not going to be able to trade him for what you could trade him for right now. And I think that you look at what Montreal did last year. They traded 2 late first round picks for Noah Dobson, and you bring in a top pair defenseman. If they can start to get some first round picks for, if it's Lawton or McMahon or Ekman Larson, you should be able to trade for a difference maker with those pieces.
That's it.
And I think that should be the intention, is not to go and make those picks at the draft. And that's why you're probably okay if it's a 2027 first round pick that you're asking for from Edmonton or Colorado or whoever you're trading with, because the teams have those picks, and then you can try and flip those and get a top 4 defenseman, a top line forward, something. That has to be what they try and do here.
So Oliver Ekman Larson already has twice as many goals as he did a year ago. He's 34 years old, going to be turning 35, I believe, in the summer. Hold on, let me look this up. Yeah, July.
Yes.
So he's entering his age 35 season. 1,100 games already on the tires. He's going to be playing in Olympic Games where he'll be asked to eat some pretty hard minutes and play a very difficult role. He's made deep postseason runs, including the one with the Florida Panthers in 2024. He's aged great. This contract has been great for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but banking on him next year returning and being this version of himself, I think would be foolish. And if you go into the offseason with the idea of, well, we don't need to move him because we have him in the offseason, I don't see a group being as desperate to bring on Oliver Ekman Larson and saying, like, okay, now you're looking at the contract, now you're looking at the age. This is the time to do it. And so, yeah, the case to me is clear. The case to you is clear. Obviously, the asking price has to be extremely high because you're fine with him being on your roster the following season. Like, there's nobody that's saying you have to move off of this contract. He's a piece of the change that you need. And honestly, there's a little bit of a secondary discussion, too, of you remove guys like Lawton and Oliver Ekman Larson for a team that has had the personality failings that they've had, and that opens up a different can of worms. But 1 through 10, an OEL trade.
I feel like it's low. 3 out of 10.
Not the answer I wanted. I wanted a 6.
I think Again, I wonder if they lose 5 of the 6 before the deadline, and all of a sudden that changes the picture dramatically, where it's like,
It would have to.
we're for sure not making it. Let's sell more aggressively. So,
Well, I think if you lost 5 of 6 too, like, or let's just be a little bit more realistic. Let's say you lose half of these games, because that's all it would take for you to truly be out of the playoff picture, right? Like, you lose half these games and they're against conference opponents. It's just not happening for you this year. But the worse you do lose, the less likely it is that ownership or anybody involved with this team can look at the group and say, hey, there's something here. Hey, this is just a little bit of a retool. This is a little bit of a rejiggering that we need in order to get to this spot. Like, that's actually the part of this that I think is sort of being a little overlooked in the conversation, which is it's not only about this year. It is going to be about next season, and you're probably willing to cut a little deeper into the roster if you feel like the guys that are currently a piece of this are just a disaster and unable to even get close to the playoff picture.
yeah, I mean, they need someone that can come in, and it has to be all about next season, right? I mean, they almost have to go all in on the idea. It's out there. I mean, Kipper's reported that they have no interest in being bad for any extended stretch. Like, this isn't going to be a rebuild, which makes sense, but it has to be a pivot to where you bounce back up in the standings next year. And, hopefully it's a dramatic bounce back from where they are right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you get aggressive in free agency and you get aggressive in trades, and you're going to have tons of cap space to make things happen. And they're going to have to get creative. And I think they're going to have to show their core players like Austin Matthews and William Nylander that there's still something here, in back-to-back seasons like this. Then all of a sudden the conversation a year from now is much different. It's not a retool anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot riding on the offseason, and it'll be a lot easier in the offseason if you have some bullets to play with. Because if it's like last year where they have cap space, but they don't have any assets to trade, you're going to be picking through the bargain bin again, looking for the Dakota Joshuas and the Matthias Michellis. And we saw how that played out this year.
Or you're going to be giving out a bad contract to somebody that you don't really want because you're just forced to use the cap space, which is, I mean, kind of the way that I view. I know they were trades in Joshua and Michelli, but those two guys now looking back on it, yeah, it felt like they're flyers. And one of them in particular is like, yeah, and Joshua, now I would say a contract that is not obviously untradeable, but one that if you tried to move him off at the deadline, you'd probably need to attach something to him in order to move off of the books. Like, I just don't see a team saying, yeah, what we really want is Dakota Joshua. We'll give you a 4th-round pick for it to happen. So, yeah.
That was the talk, and I was in Vancouver. That was the talk there, was that we can't believe that we moved this guy without an asset attached to it and, didn't have to retain anything, and we got out of that contract. I mean, would they get a 4th-round pick?
Yeah, I think a 3rd or a 4th. But I will say this, too. There is a little Vancouver to that. There's a little bit of like, we stuck it to Toronto. We can't believe it. We can't believe it. Like, I don't know. You could kind of believe it based on, like, he makes what, $3.5 million, and he was a year removed. He had this season where he had to deal with the cancer and came off of that and didn't look quite right. Like, there was at least a case to believe that he was going to be more impactful than he's been this season. Okay, so keeping it moving. We already did Riley. Brandon Carlo. You think it's higher or lower than Oliver Ekman-Larsson?
I think it's probably same ballpark.
Okay.
I would say 3 out of 10.
Okay.
The tough one with Brandon Carlo, as everyone knows, is the optics on that, because you're not going to get back anything close to what they gave up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can get it. I don't think you can get a 1st-round pick for Carlo. So can you do a trade that's two 2nd-round picks? Or, I mean, maybe you can. Maybe you can go to an Edmonton and say your blue line's a mess, and here's a big, strong guy that played really well against you right before the Olympic break, and you got a good look at him. Maybe. I think it's the same as Ekman-Larsson, though. It needs to be a pretty nice package to be willing to do it.
Can I make the case?
Because Carlo is, yeah.
You don't follow the NBA at all, right?
The Raptors when they're going for a championship.
But you're aware of the Luka Doncic trade, right?
Yep.
Okay. So this past week, the Dallas Mavericks traded Anthony Davis, who was the centerpiece of the Luka Doncic trade. They turned him into 2 late 1st-round picks from the Washington Wizards, one of which I think is the Oklahoma City Thunder pick, which is like going to be likely dead last in the 1st round, and another of very little value, which made the trade come to a close, right? Like, we now know what they got back for Luka Doncic, and it's essentially nothing. They got nothing in that trade, but it's done. Like, the deal is done. The idea that you're going to improve on Brandon Carlo's trade return in the future, to me, doesn't really seem all that plausible. Like, he's kind of is what he is. It took a one-time special circumstance where a general manager in Tree Living struck out on the guy that he wanted in Rasmus Anderson, kept exploring the market. There was really nothing going. There was nothing happening. They wanted Braden Shen. That couldn't happen. They couldn't use the first to get that thing done. They get desperate. They come to Boston's doorstep, and the Bruins get a haul. They get Fraser Minton and this first-round pick that looks like it's going to haunt them and be a disaster. People in this market, as you know, are going to speak about this trade forever, especially considering Fraser Minton plays in the same division as they do against one of the teams that Maple Leaf fans hate the most, who they feel has pilfered them for the last 20 years when it comes to these types of trades. What the Dallas Mavericks did, they said, we don't want to have this around anymore. We don't want to have this conversation anymore. We want to be able to move off of this. And to me, there's actually a little bit of a case for the Toronto Maple Leafs to say, okay, is Brandon Carlo, is his value going to go up dramatically if we try to move him in the offseason? If the answer is no, and someone is offering us a decent package in return right now, let's just close the door on this thing and let's move off. Let's make sure that this chapter is done. Let's remove this from hanging over the franchise. Let's remove every time that he's on the ice. Fans are pointing this trade out. Let's just close this chapter on what was a bad trade, and let's just accept that it's over and you can't make up for the bad trade now. Like, you're not going to be able to make it right.
Well, I think that the counter to that, especially from management point of view, is if you're focusing on being good next year, that trading him doesn't make sense, and that he can be part of the solution. I think they still believe in him, basically. He's had injury problems this year. Last year in the playoffs, they saw what he looked like at his best. And if you're talking about moving off of Morgan Riley, Carlo's going to have a different partner. He's looked pretty good with Jake McCabe in the games that he's played with him. I think that they're relatively committed to that. But you go into next year and Carlo's going to be a pending UFA, and you're right, his value is not going to be the same. So if it's me, like Ekman Larson, I'm dangling him out there and seeing how high the offers get. And if they get high enough, then I don't have any problem pulling the trigger.
That's the other part, too, is just the pending free agency stuff. Like, if you're not moving Carlo now, what are the odds that you're re-signing him?
Not very high, because the number is going to be so big, and he's going to be, I think he'll be 30 next year, right? And he's had tons of injuries. I mean, in Boston, he had a lot of injuries. And I know one of the things that we didn't talk about enough when they made that trade is that he had declined, if you look at his underlying numbers, in part because of the injuries that he's had. I mean, he's had a number of concussions. It's part of why I think you see the reluctance for him to fight and play physically, is that his body's been through a lot. So extending him, I don't think makes any sense.
So the list we've gone through is 2 guys over a 5, McMahon and Lawton. So over 50%, those 2 guys get traded. In fact, you put it at 70% for both. We went under 50% for Ekman Larson. We went basically 0% for Morgan Riley at the deadline, but a higher percentage in the offseason, and lower than 50% for Carlo. I don't really care about Simon Benoit, because I just think it's a very inconsequential trade either way. Like, he changes your playoff odds by nothing if you trade him. If you keep him, I don't view the assets that you'd be getting back as any somewhat consequential, really. Anyway, I'd be shocked if they were, based on the season he's having. Is there anyone else on this team right now, heading into the deadline, that you would view at least a 5?
Well, I think that they could make some more of those inconsequential ones you're talking about. Like, dump Yarncroc for whatever you get for him. Maybe not dump, but yeah, I'm sure you can get something
get
for
anything
Troy.
for Yarncroc?
Like a late pick.
Sure, done.
You retain half of it, and you move off the money, and Troy Stetcher is interesting. Like, someone's going to want Troy Stetcher, and you can get something. I mean, if it was me, I would try and extend him on a reasonable number. But if you can't get that done, you might as well trade him and try again in the offseason, right? So, as much as that one hurts, but that's kind of where you're at. He's a pending UFA. So, and then the other ones over a 5, though, I think is the tough part of that equation.
Or just
no,
out
I
of
don't
5,
think
50-50. Like, you think it's 50-50 Nick Robertson gets traded? 50-50 Michelli gets traded?
No, I don't see it. No. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a lot of suitors for Michelli. And I think it feels like Robertson has put himself back into potentially part of the solution and part of the future now. So my prediction for this deadline is they move 2 or 3 pieces. the obvious ones, not going to be that surprising. Maybe they get a first round pick, maybe they get a couple second round picks, and it's not going to be, I'm not expecting fireworks here from this management team. I'm not expecting them to dynamite this and try and try and really pull it apart, which is probably what they should do. Because I think, like you said, they're going to hold on to that hope that if we're still competitive without McMahon and Lawton, we still potentially could get in and prove everyone wrong and show that this was, a bad start that killed us as opposed to a bad team, which I don't know how many people still believe in the market, but I think there's still some belief in the management group that this team can turn it around.
From my vantage point, I wish so badly they would trade Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Brandon Carlo, because I don't think their values are going to ever be higher than what they are now. And if your case is, well, JD, they're trying to retool for next year. They need bodies for next season. My counter would simply be, what do you think OEL is going to be next year? And with Brandon Carlo, if the premise is you're keeping this guy, like if he had a long-term contract at his number, I would go like, okay, it is what it is. You've got a runway here. But you're a year away from him being a pending unrestricted free agent with a really difficult choice to make. So he's a one extra year solution in the retool. I don't know if that is solving any of your problems. My hope would be that they actually do re-sign Troy Stecher at a reasonable number, because I do think that he brings a level of compete, a level of understanding. And also, I don't know what he's going to look like in a playoff series, because that's where the size is going to matter with a player like that. But as someone who can help get you there, I think Troy Stecher can do that. So if you're telling me that next season you can return Chris Tanev, if he can come back healthy for a year or two, like again, it's a bit of a mystery in terms of what he's going to be. But if you're going to have McCabe, Tanev, Stecher as just like the first three pieces and have to figure out some of the rest of the blue line, I'm okay with that. Primarily because if you trade those two guys in OEL and Brandon Carlo, and you're trading Lawton, and you're trading McMahon, you move four significant pieces out, and you bring back a pile of assets, that to me now puts you in a conversation where if there is a real defenseman out there, someone who, like that Dobson trade that you referenced, that you believe can come and step in and give you top 4 minutes and is under contract, or someone that you think you're going to sign to a long-term contract, now all of a sudden you're actually in those conversations. And if you can bring somebody like that in, and it's at the expense of moving off of two older players who do not have a ton of term left and who are at the peak of their value right now, that's something to me that I think is better to be figured out later than hoping and praying that those two guys are going to be a part of a solution for next year, when the most likely outcome is you're just trading them at next year's deadline for less of a price point, and you've actually punted another year.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, you need to be confident that you can rebuild that blue line with those pieces that you're talking about that they're going to have. And I don't know if that is, do you revisit Dougie Hamilton? Do you look for like a reclamation project like that? If they move off of Ekman-Larsson and Carlo, they're going to have acres of cap space.
Yeah.
They're going to have 30, 35 million to spend. So do you go to free agency, and are you interested in a Darren Radish, who's had a huge year for Tampa as a guy who can come in and be a big offensive weapon for you? Maybe. All of a sudden you can be a player, as you said, with the assets in trades and also in free agency. So that's what appeals to me. And I just think that you need to see what the asking price, you need to see what people are willing to pay for those players. If Carlo gets you a first round pick, then I make the trade. But I'm just not sure if he does or not now.
No, listen, again, there's obviously a line of demarcation in terms of you moving off of these guys. It's not just a fire sale or best offer for those players. Like, there is a value in them returning if you are trying to retool. But I have to think with Oliver Ekman-Larsson in particular, that a team is going to offer you a first-round pick. Like, it's nuts to me that a guy that has the extra year, that has that pedigree, who's having the season that he's having, who just made Sweden's Olympic team over Ekholm, isn't going to be able to fetch you a price. And if you were just asking, like, okay, this is the secondary conversation of this, which is like, do we really think this management group is going to be here? But if you were taking the job, right? If you were trying to allure the best possible candidate general manager, and this is where it gets really tricky with the conversation of the guy making these trades and what he's actually setting himself up for. But if you were trying to attract that guy, would you say, do you want to come here where you have Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Brandon Carlo for one more year under contract? Or would you like to have 2 first-round picks that you can work with in trades to try to rebuild this blue line? I think the answer is pretty clear.
Yeah, and I think potentially we're looking at a different coach as well, and a different system, and just a different idea of what this team's going to be. And it's not going to be the tree living, tree fence, big stay at home guys. I think that they're going to be looking for puck movers in the offseason. They sort of did last year, but they didn't try and change the composition of the blue line, and that's part of what's bitten them. This team's been able to score enough goals, even with the injuries that they've had, even with the first half that Austin Matthews had. Offense isn't the problem. They got to get better on the other side of the puck. And part of that is going to be coaching. Part of that's going to be style of play. So I think that if you have more of a blank slate for a GM to come in and bring their vision and bring their coach, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
Totally agree. Totally and completely agree. This is the last one because this is that other piece that I mentioned. Do you think Tree Living, in having a deadline where he sold spectacularly well, like outlining a case here where, he moved off of more than just the pending free agents, but let's say he hits home runs with those pending free agents and he hits a home run with like an Oliver Ekman-Larsson or a Brendan Carlo, that a great sell could actually save his job if they missed the postseason?
It could be that. The other thing that I think could be a factor is they're going to talk about what happened last year and the mistakes that they made as being part of the Shanahan era, and him being a lame duck president and wanting to go all in. And my understanding is that is going to be part of the conversation that happens. And again, like I'm not in the room, but I think that if you're Brad Tree Living and you're going to ownership, you're saying, look, like the situation last year wasn't ideal. We had a president who was in charge, who wanted to buy aggressively, who wanted to trade these first round picks because it was potentially his last year. They went all in. Wasn't necessarily my decision. And we pivoted here. We got a lot of assets. We had kind of the year from hell where a lot went wrong in terms of goaltending and injuries and things. And we feel pretty good about being better next year. I don't know whether or not the board's going to buy that, but I think that that's going to be kind of the sell job that's going to come from this management group.
Yeah, I think that would start with a great sell at the deadline. That's the only way that I really do believe that you can actually give them that idea is, hey, I did what was right for the long-term future of the franchise. There's now positive momentum about me and good conversations about what they could do with those assets and that cap space moving into the next season, rather than you trying to cling to this postseason spot in hopes that if you make the playoffs but get demolished, that is somehow going to be a better feather in your cap. Like from just a pure survival standpoint, I would think that the best move is the better long-term future of the franchise and the way that the fan base and the media are talking about you going into the offseason. And the scenario that I'm outlining where you keep Carlo, you keep OEL, you move off of one of these pending free agents, you miss out on the postseason and in a slog of a drive to it, or you get in and you get pumped by Tampa in the first round. I'm telling you, which one of those outcomes is going to make you look more favorable? It's the sell. So if that's the way that you want to play it, and if that's the way that they would approach it, which I think is a smart one, do the right thing and cut the knife a little bit deeper.
And not even to look good by staying here, it's like for your next job as well, right? I mean, if you have a great sell, people potentially look at Tree Living's time in Toronto differently, whether he's here or not. And if he's looking for the next job and to be a GM somewhere else, if it doesn't work out here, you want to be able to say to your next boss, I did the right thing. The year when I didn't do the right thing, I wasn't in charge, and my body of work looks pretty good, especially if the Leafs can turn it around next year. I mean, look at how much different people are talking about Kevin Adams right now in Buffalo with the way that he was talked about like he should have never even had that job. And now all of a sudden you look at it through a different lens and they win the Doan trade. And, there's some things that he did that worked out really well. And I think that if you're Tree Living, that's the way you need to look at this.
Yeah. James Mirtle of The Athletic. Thanks as always. It's great to have you back, buddy.
Thanks, JD.
See you, pal. Before we take the break, the iconic Canadian rock group Billy Talent is celebrating the 20th anniversary of their sophomore album, Billy Talent 2, and they're coming to RBC Amphitheater in Toronto on Saturday, July 18th. We've got a pair of tickets to give away. Text the code word FLAGBOYS to 590-590 for your chance to win. Listen in tomorrow for our next code word and giveaway. If you don't win with us, tickets are now on sale on Ticketmaster. Contest open to Ontario residents only. Standard message and data rates may apply. Subscribe to this podcast, leave 5 stars, reach out anytime at JD Bunkis on Twitter and Instagram. Quick break. I want to come back and talk about what an opportunity there is for somebody in the NBA.
Good news, Ontario. Lotto Max Dream Draws is back. Every Lotto Max ticket gets you a Dream Draws ticket with the chance to win one of over 750 guaranteed weekly prizes from $50 to $10,000. That's a Dream Draws ticket every time you purchase a Lotto Max ticket. So don't delay. Buy your Lotto Max ticket in store for your chance to win. Only until February 27th. Ontario only. Must be 18 plus. Offer excludes free play, self-serve terminals, online play, and is not valid with any other mode of purchase. Visit olg.ca/dreamdraws for more details.
It's not a birthday without balloons. It's not Valentine's without candy. It's not the big game snack table without plates. And with thousands of products under $5, it's not a party till you stopped at Party City. Party City, Canada. Now it's a party.
Love is messy, and honestly, that's kind of the point. At Mucho Burrito, we don't take shortcuts, because that's not how you show love. We make our food in-house and use cheese that's actually cheese. 100% real Canadian Monterey Jack. No blends, no palm oil. We finish our fries with lime and ancho. Salt alone felt unloving, because when you choose love, you don't hold back. On February 14th, Mucho is sharing the love with a BOGO on burritos or bowls. In-store only. Mucho Burrito.
Love Mucho! Access Storage presents Team Canada ski cross racer Reese Howden.
Being able to represent a country that has done everything to support my dreams is unreal. To stand on the podium and represent Canada, I don't take it for granted at all.
Access Storage, proud partner of Team Canada.
We're building the future of nuclear energy right here in Ontario. The first small modular reactors in the G7. The first large-scale nuclear facilities in decades, creating over 150,000 new jobs, delivering new opportunities for workers, securing our future as an energy superpower. That's how we protect Ontario. Learn more at ontario.ca/poweringOntario. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
Stella, about my new title.
Cupid's little helper in charge of paying the GST at Spence, Callum?
That's the one.
It'll end Valentine's Day.
Okay.
Callum, think of all the Canadians you're helping by making it more affordable to create their perfect diamond engagement ring.
A champion of tax relief.
Buy your engagement ring at Spence before Valentine's Day and save the 5% GST.
Spence.
Wow! Across from Scarborough Town Centre, near Square One in Mississauga, and by Colossus Theatre in Vaughan.
Game night at your place? Grab 12 chicken wings or boneless poppers from Pizzaville for just $13.73. Make it even hotter with 2 hot honey dips for only $2 more. Order at pizzaville.ca or from your cell at pound 3636.
Wayfair's winter clearance is on. Right now through February 16th, get Wayfair's best deals since Black Friday with fast and easy shipping straight to your door. Save up to 70% off everything home now at Wayfair.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
The 2026 Canadian International Auto Show returns this week at the Metro Toronto Convention Centre. Enjoy 650,000 square feet of the total automotive experience, the newest models, exotic and rare collector cars, classics, and some of the finest hypercars from around the world. Listen for the code word on Sportsnet 590 The Fan for your chance to win tickets.
Golf Town's annual regrip event is back. Get 40% off golf grips from top brands like Golf Pride, Super Stroke, Jumbo Max, and more. Save today at one of Golf Town's 48 locations or golftown.com. While supplies last, some exclusions apply.
In life, it's important to know what's real, not real, and unreal. Mortgage payments? Real. Inheriting a castle from a long-lost relative who somehow found you? Not real. Getting up to a 3% match just for transferring your account to Wealthsimple, plus a chance to win a $3 million home? Unreal. But it's actually real. Register by March 31st for Wealthsimple's totally real, unreal deal at wealthsimple.com/unreal. T's and C's apply.
So you went out drinking and you did the right thing. You left the car at home. Thank you. But did you know that if you drank a lot and stayed up late, you could still have alcohol in your system the next day and could register a warn, even a fail on a roadside screening device? It can take up to 12 hours or more from the time of your last drink for your BAC to reach zero. And only time, not sleep, coffee, or a shower sobers you up any faster. A message from Arrival Live Drive Sober and ChangeTheConversation.ca.
Bienvenue to Mr. Sub and say bonjour to Mr. Monsieur.
Bonjour.
Mr. Monsieur is a Canadian twist on our French classique, le croque monsieur. Tender ham, melted Swiss, sautéed onion, a rich layer of cream sauce, and a sprinkle of parmesan. Et voilà, all toasted to perfection. Will you be dining alone?
Just grabbing lunch? This is a Mr. Sub, right?
Mais oui, one Mr. Sub, Mr. Monsieur coming right up.
Mr. Sub may not be fine dining, but we are a whole lot of fine eating. Mr. Sub, yours since 1968.
Hey, it's Ailish Forafar.
And I'm Justin Cuthbert.
Join us as we discuss the most important sports stories of the day and tee up the biggest games of the night.
It's The Fan pregame, 6 p.m. weekdays on Sportsnet, Sportsnet 590 The Fan, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Have Keith Law coming up in a couple of minutes to break down the Blue Jays farm system with me. Wrote a great piece detailing their top 20 prospects. Before I do that, something I didn't get to yesterday. The list of contestants for the NBA dunk contest has come out, and it's what we've grown accustomed to, right? There's no Mac McClung, the 3-time dunk contest champion that I'm sure you're all going to miss. It's actually all NBA players this time. Headlined by a player who gets 17 minutes a game, Jackson Hayes. Woo! Jace Richardson, whose most interesting attribute in terms of this contest is that his father is Jason Richardson, who won a dunk contest, so there's a legacy angle. Kashad Johnson of the Miami Heat, who I don't know who he is at all. He plays apparently 5 minutes a night for Miami. And Carter Bryant. Those are your contestants for the 2026 NBA dunk contest. So I've already gone over this, and it's just become tired. So I don't need to go through the NBA's problem in this regard, because I've said it. The NBA has a real issue with its younger players, its new generation, and it's not even just them, because this really does start with LeBron James not doing the dunk contest. I know that feels Skip Bayless-y, but it's just the truth. Like, stars used to do the dunk contest until LeBron decided he didn't want to do it, and he absolutely could have won it. And people started to follow suit. That's what happens. Best players set the tempo for these leagues and these events, and he ducked out because he was one of the first guys that was like, I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to make a mistake. And there is very much to me, culture in the NBA of, oh, you don't want to get embarrassed. Oh, you don't want to be on Twitter as a joke or a meme. It's like, okay. I think people move off of this stuff fairly quickly, and it would take something astronomical for it to be remembered as like a incredibly embarrassing event at a dunk contest. But whatever. The names are the names, and they ain't getting better. To me, it's more about the opportunity that's out there, because guys have decided to look past this. Ant has decided to say that this is not for him and he would need to get paid. And frankly, I don't want to see money come into this equation. I don't. Like, I'm pretty sure there's probably already a prize. But secondarily, the players are incentivized now for a midseason tournament. They're making more money than they've ever had. Bad players in the NBA make $20 million. It's not that difficult to get up to $20 million in the NBA anymore. They have so much money that it just like I'm not going to say it's meaningless, but the idea of all of a sudden the dunk contest winner gets $1 million, like, I don't even know if that's going to move the needle for these dudes. So forget the incentivization, because it's already there. The incentive should be, right now there's a void for North American superstar, lovable NBA players. The best players in the game right now are all international. It's Luka Doncic. It's Nikola Jokic. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Go on down the list. I think there's a massive opportunity for the first guy, the first new kid, the first fresh face that is viewed universally as one of the future stars of this league, to do this event and try and reignite the dunk contest. Try and reignite good players going to the dunk contest. And I don't know if it's going to be like a Cooper Flag. I don't know if it's going to be a kid from this next draft class, because it doesn't appear to be anybody that's in the league right now. They don't seem to be taking it anywhat seriously, which is fine. But the next guy who does it is going to be so beloved and popular, even if they suck at the dunk contest, that it has now become, I think, really something to monitor. Because we saw it with the three-point contest, where it was starting to kind of a little bit of fade, and then Steph Curry's in it, and all of a sudden it was just like, now it's a no-brainer. Damian Lillard's going to play in this thing despite having an Achilles injury, because he so badly wants to win the three-point competition. A lot of the great shooters show up for that contest. The dunk contest has that same potential. It's going to take one guy. It's going to take one star-level player like a Cooper Flagg, and I'm using him as an example because he's this year's first overall pick. One guy. That's all it's going to take. One guy with the stones to step up and say, simply, I want to make the dunk contest about stars again. And boom, that person's popularity is going to skyrocket. I'm telling you, they are going to be loved. There is such a huge chance for someone to do this. I don't know. I can't believe that someone doesn't. I would be shocked if even by next year, someone doesn't grab this and try to run with it, because it's just so clear and obvious to me. Anyway, quick break. We'll come back and talk to Keith Law about the Jays Farm System.
Golf Town's annual re-grip event is back. Get 40% off golf grips from top brands like Golf Pride, Super Stroke, Jumbo Max, and more. Save today at one of Golf Town's 48 locations or golftown.com. While supplies last, some exclusions apply.
BetMGM, authorized gaming partner of the NBA, has your back all season long. From tip-off to the final buzzer, they're ready for every exciting moment and every highlight play that comes throughout basketball season. Download the BetMGM app. BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 19 years of age or older to wager. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you have any questions or concerns about your gambling or that of someone close to you, please contact Connects Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. BetMGM operates pursuant to an operating agreement with iGaming Ontario.
There's nothing worse than your furnace taking a long winter's nap. Stay warm with a free furnace checkup from Enercare, available to homes in the GTA. That's a $99 value. Our experts can fix your furnace fast, or we'll give you up to $10,000 in prepaid credit cards when you rent a new heat pump and furnace, installed as soon as the next day. Keep your furnace wide awake with a visit from an Enercare expert. Terms and conditions apply. Visit enercare.ca.
Enercare, experts at home.
The legendary Yeti, born to handle ice, snow, and the harshest conditions imaginable.
Hey, that's like a Subaru with all-wheel drive.
The mighty Yeti uses its impressive strength to navigate any terrain.
Like the X mode in a Subaru.
No one knows exactly what they do out there.
Usually snowboarding, sometimes skating if I find a pair that fits. Legendary winters await, so hurry into your local Subaru dealer for lease and finance rates as low as 0.5%. Conditions apply. See dealer for details. Subaru, uncommon comes standard.
Thinking, Mira?
Callum, Valentine's Day makes me think of barn owls.
Interesting.
They choose one partner, one and only. They don't ghost after 2 dates.
Okay.
So this pendant has one round created diamond.
Brilliant. Modern yet classic.
Callum, people should be more like barn owls.
The one and only pendant for your one and only, starting at $199. Spence.
Across from Scarborough Town Centre, near Square One in Mississauga, and by Colossus Theatre in Vaughan.
Bet365 is paying out before the final buzzer.
Check out Bet365's early payout for NHL hockey. When you bet on a team to win and they take a 3-goal lead, you get paid, no matter the final score. And with early payout, you could be on your way to a winning parlay.
Early payout. Just another reason why it's never ordinary at Bet365. An official betting partner of the NHL. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you or someone you know has concerns about gambling, visit connexontario.ca. T&Cs apply.
The Canadian International Auto Show presented by the Toronto Star. More innovation, more family fun.
Begin your day at Camp Jeep, a rugged indoor obstacle course.
Visit Castrol Alley and see the stunning pink Cadillac Fleetwood 60 Special Convertible made entirely of Lego bricks.
Auto Show is all about winning. Enter for a chance to win the new 2026 Crosstrek Hybrid Compact SUV. Everything drivers love about the Crosstrek, plus even more fuel efficiency and lower emissions.
Need a getaway? Enter for a chance to win an all-inclusive 7-day vacation for 2 to Mexico from sunbook.ca.
Visit Desjardins Insurance and test your skills with the Drive Safe Challenge. Discover home, auto, and life insurance that's really big on care.
2 adults, 2 kids. Save up to 15% when you buy online. It's the family admission ticket.
Tuesdays are super with TD, only $15. The 2026 Canadian International Auto Show, presented by the Toronto Star, February 13th to 22nd, Metro Toronto Convention Center. Autoshow.ca for tickets.
Tune in to The Raptor Show, weekdays from 11 a.m. to noon. Brought to you by McDonald's Raptor Chicken Nacho Poutine. Made with 100% Canadian-raised seasoned chicken, nacho cheese sauce, and tortilla strips. Available for a limited time.
In life, it's important to know what's real, not real, and unreal. Mortgage payments? Real. Inheriting a castle from a long-lost relative who somehow found you? Not real. Getting up to a 3% match just for transferring your account to Wealthsimple, plus a chance to win a $3 million home? Unreal. But it's actually real. Register by March 31st for Wealthsimple's totally real, unreal deal at wealthsimple.com/unreal. T's and C's apply.
Why BDC for my business? The timing's right. Everything's in motion. Economy's changing. It's all about automation, AI. So I said to myself, take the plunge. Yes, I need a loan, but I also need a hand from a partner who's truly working with me, helping me no matter what comes next. Not later. Now.
Get ready for what's next. With BDC, you get financing and advice adapted to your projects. Discover how at bdc.ca/financing. BDC, financing, advising, know-how.
Hey, it's Blake Murphy.
And I'm Matt Bonner.
Join us weekday mornings at 11 as we break down all things Toronto Raptors.
It's the Raptor Show on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and wherever you get your podcasts.
CJCL Toronto.
Our next guest just put in a tremendous amount of work. It's up at The Athletic right now. If you're a fan of any team, Keith Law broke down your top 20 prospects in your farm system, and he did the Toronto Blue Jays, who we'll obviously be focusing in on today. Keith Law, senior baseball writer for The Athletic, former special assistant to the GM for the Toronto Blue Jays. He joins us now. Hey, man, it's great to have you back on the show. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so first of all, I know this is like a year-round project for you, but how long does it take for you to do this? Like, honestly, because you look through this and it's just, this is not for me. Like, I could just never do this.
I'm not sure it's for me, actually. It's something like 80,000 words, which is roughly the length of either of the two books I've written, right? So it's basically, I write a book every year. I start, yes, you're right, it's a year-round project, but the stuff you're specifically talking about, I typically start after right around when the GM meetings happen, and I start reaching out to people with teams, the director of player development or somebody comparable for every one of the 30 clubs to get that started, and also then follow up with pro scouts or other office people I know who've seen a lot of guys this year or do video or analytical work. The writing itself all happens in like 3.5 weeks, which is not smart. But like most people, if you stick a deadline in front of me, then suddenly things get a lot more urgent. And so, look, I don't think I wrote an actual word of this certainly not until the new year, and then wrote it all in like 3.5 weeks.
See, you're confirming one of my big theories about this industry is I truly believe that most people that work in sports are lifelong procrastinators. And that part of the allure of this job is that it forces you, like you have to do it. So it's the only way for people to work, that you have to be someone that can work under a deadline or have a show that starts at a certain specific time. Otherwise, you just wouldn't be able to be successful.
I wouldn't do it. There's way more, so many more. I work at home this time of year, right? I haven't traveled, right? There's so many more interesting things that I could be doing than work.
Yeah. Amen. Okay, so let's just start with this, a broad scope picture of this farm system, because a year ago, we were having some pretty major negative conversations about the state of the Blue Jays farm system. We were looking at them in comparison to the teams in their division and went, ooh, if they don't nail some of these signings in free agency, there's not going to be a lot of room for them to operate in the trade market. Even when I was at last year's deadline and it was Joe Ryan, who was the big, sexy, popular name for Toronto Blue Jays fans, I was told by a few different people that came on the show, the Blue Jays don't even have the assets to be able to get into a conversation for a guy like Joe Ryan. And pieces were written about how the farm system got to this place. One of the things I got back from a lot of people was that the Blue Jays weren't taking enough high ceiling stabs. They were actually missing on some lower floor players. Now, when I'm reading this, and maybe this is just because of the advent of social media and you get way more informed on prospects, but it does seem like the Blue Jays have a little bit more depth than a year ago. Obviously, hitting on Savage is a massive, massive hit for this organization, given what he did for them in the postseason this year. But the overall health of this farm right now, compared to when you wrote these pieces a year ago, to you, has it taken a significant step forward?
No, I actually think it's in worse shape than it was a year ago because they've traded so much away, right? They dealt away a lot of depth. I loved their draft last year. Remember, they didn't have a second-round pick. So a lot of those guys, other than JoJo Parker, who I was a huge fan of, thought it was a great pick. Thought it was a great pick for the spot. Thought it was a great pick for the Blue Jays. I thought it represented them taking the kind of guy, when you pick in the top 10, you want a guy with ceiling, but there's also got to be some kind of floor there. And I think the fact that he looks like he can really, really hit, that gives them some kind of floor, but also a good bit of upside. We can talk more in more detail about him if you want, but the fact that they had a bunch of guys get hurt or be hurt last year. Kasevich took a big step forward, I thought, in 2024. His season was completely ruined by injury. Jake Bloss out for the whole year due to injury. Tiedemann didn't appear at all this year. There's some hope, at least, that he's going to come back and be something. Barriera, same thing, but there's a lot of zeros for last year in terms of guys either just not performing or guys being so hurt. I mean, Kasevich played a little bit, but he wasn't himself. Guys being so hurt that it ended up just kind of a washout year. And so if you look through the top 20, just look at the top 10 of what I posted yesterday, there's guys on there who they didn't protect from the Rule 5 draft and didn't get picked. That's generally a sign. That's not even my opinion at that point. Other teams said, yeah, we don't think we can carry that guy, or we don't think he's a good enough prospect to try to carry him, which is a bit of an indictment of the state of the system.
Well, I would say that I forgot Jake Bloss existed until I read your piece. And I went, all right. Yeah. Jake Bloss. The center.
And I like Jake Bloss.
Yeah.
Like, I think he could be a fourth starter if he just comes back healthy.
But he's eighth in the Blue Jays farm system.
Right.
And that's, I'm saying is like, generally, I'm not Mr. Prospect. I don't have the ability to take in as much of this as guys like you do, or people who just solely focus on baseball. But yeah, I didn't think it was great that I saw Jake Bloss's name at 8 and went, oh, right, he existed. I guess for me, like the part that I do feel better about reading this list is the top for them feels a little bit more concrete. And certainly with having you Savage. But I actually want to start with JoJo Parker, because it's a little odd to see a guy who was just picked, and granted, he was 8th overall, right? So like that's a very talented player. But to be 60 in your rankings, a guy who is yet to play pro baseball. And so what is it about this guy that really stands out to you that has him here? Because just my assumption reading this would be, with one good year of pro ball, he can jump quite a bit from 60.
Oh, yes. Like he could be Kevin McGonigal, who is now number 2 on my global rankings. For folks who don't know, he's Tigers prospect, shortstop. I still think he's going to second base eventually, but he's still a shortstop. He's from around where I live, actually. And in high school, he had a pretty similar reputation to JoJo Parker. This guy can just flat out hit. We don't know what the power is going to be. He's probably not a shortstop, but the guy's hit absolutely everywhere. He's hit the best pitching on the showcase circuit when high schoolers tend to face the best high schoolers from across the country. And we liked some of the smaller things too, like less important things, but like it's a good body. He's athletic. He moves well. I talked to McGonigal at the Futures game this year. It's like, he's only about 5'10", only taller than me, but strong, really strong. You're like, nope, that's perfect. Don't change that. And it's funny with Parker, I got to meet him, his whole family. I'm sure you know some of the backstory. And JoJo and his brother were both there in t-shirts and shorts. And I'm, looking at them like, that's just not fair. Like, how are we both, we cannot share 99% of our DNA, because I don't look anything like that. He is so muscular, so ripped. And yet at the plate, his big thing is he hits, he puts the ball in play. He doesn't make bad decisions. I'm like, man, that is a great foundation to work with. And when I talked about there's a high floor there, everyone thinks this guy's going to hit. We miss on those guys occasionally, but generally if there's that broad of a consensus on a high school player's ability to hit, usually that ends up working out. And the Blue Jays will have to work on some other things with him, like getting him to drive the ball more. Because as I said, he has strength, but he doesn't really hit that way. Figuring out a position. He's probably not a shortstop in the long term, but he's going to stay on the dirt somewhere. Second, third. These are the things that player development will work out. And to your point, if he goes out and hits the way McGonigal hit in his first year, he's going to shoot up the rankings, because we're all sort of primed to like everything JoJo Parker does, including his makeup as well. Now he's got to go prove it at even just in low A. If he never gets out of low A next year but rakes, fine. He's going to shoot up everybody's list. I'm not just talking about mine.
But so a guy that profiles like that, though, I'm just would be guessing here, but that they would move through the farm system fairly quickly.
That's happened with McGonigal, despite the fact he's been hurt a little bit each of his 2 full years now in pro ball, to the point that he's actually passed Max Clark, who's the 3rd pick in the same draft class. And Max Clark is also a stud, but McGonigal is just another level. And it's when a guy isn't being challenged by the level that he's at. That's what happened to McGonigal, where he's hit everywhere and he started driving the ball more. And the batted ball data, the exit velocity data, was kind of off the charts. I mean, that was the thing that surprised me. Was I remember seeing McGonigal here and seeing him absolutely smoke a ball. He played at the minor league stadium that's near my house, and he smoked a ball and it got to the warning track. I was like, okay, maybe there's not a lot of power there. And then he gets in a pro ball and with a wood bat in real stadiums. It's like, oh no, actually there's quite a bit of power there. And that's the kind of thing that could happen with Parker too. And if I'm the Blue Jays, that's the one thing I'm trying to do with him right now. I'm not really worrying too much about, say, position, certainly not changing the swing or the body, just working with him saying, there are probably pitches you can drive. We know you're strong enough. You definitely hit the ball hard enough. Let's talk about just making decisions about when to put the ball in play, no matter what, and what pitches you can take and drive out at least to the right center gap, consistently getting to extra bases. Because certainly in a couple of years, if he learns to do that, that's going to lead to more balls over the fence and make him potentially a star.
Yeah, but that's what I think people are really excited about, right? Is the idea of having someone in your farm system who can become a star. Because they did a good job last year of having guys who could come up and give them adequate play. And again, this is sort of where I was going with the early part of this conversation. Part of the critique that has been made by some of the other people that I've had on who talk prospects is that they've had a lot of guys who were lower ceiling plays. And when you miss on those guys, it looks tremendously bad for your organization. It really does hurt your depth. If you've got guys in your system like JoJo Parker that you can dream on who have the potential to move up from 60 into potentially a top, I don't know what is realistic to you, but a top
10
20.
or 20?
Yeah, a top 20 the following season. I think that's particularly exciting. I'm not really going to focus on Trey Savage because it's always such a weird one for me when these guys are on the prospects list. Like, I know you have to do it because technically that's what they still are.
He's eligible. Yeah.
Yeah. And I read your piece and I thought the argument is fair where it's like, hey, we still do need to see this over the course of a regular season. And the discussion with you Savage coming in was, hey, he walks everybody. That's going to be an issue for him. So there's going to have to be some proof of concept there over the course of his major league career. Nobody's setting it in stone, but through my eyes now, like, he's basically down in pen for a rotation spot. I'm not going to view him like, people know who he is and they know what the flaws are and they know what the strengths are. Arjun Nimala is a little bit of a mystery to me just because. So, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, but we had a prospect here with the Raptors. His name was Bruno Caboclo. And when he got drafted, he was famous because the NBA draft, when he was picked, there was a famous quote of, he's 2 years away from being 2 years away. And you go, oh, okay. So that's not the easiest thing. Good. But with Nimala, it wasn't that it was like such a, I can't believe it pick like it was Caboclo. It was just simply like, hey, this guy's so young and it's going to take a very long time and a very long runway before we know who he is. He's at 89 for you. And I'll be honest, I remember the first half and people pointing to like what a tremendous start that he got off to last season. I wasn't aware until I read your piece how disastrous it was from, I think the date was June 1st on, where he hit.
That's just where I cut it off. Yeah.
Yeah, but where he hit for a sub 200 average. And so I am curious, where you're at on this guy right now, what he needs to prove to you this year, and kind of where he's at sort of in the development curve, because we are now starting to get into that range of being able to dream on him now that it's 2 years in the system of like where he should project to.
And he'll play at 20 this whole year. He just turned 20 in, I believe it's November. He was super young for his class. And it wasn't artificial. He didn't do the thing a lot of players will reclassify to get into the draft earlier so they can go maybe from being a little old for their class to a little young. He just was young for his class. And I have been a big fan since the draft. I had him as a top 10 talent in that draft class. They got him at 20, which I thought was tremendous. Then his first year out, they tried to rush him to low A. I thought at the time that was a mistake, but they sent him back to the complex for a bit to kind of get his bearings. Let him just go there and rake for a bit, and he was much better after his return. He comes out of the gate this past year in high A, like you said, rakes for about 2 months. He did have a minor shoulder injury. He never really missed any time, but I do think that may have affected him. maybe he would have been better off taking some time off, taking a couple of weeks to heal up, but it was not a serious enough injury. So I want to at least give him some grace in that regard, especially given the fact that he was still young for his level, even though he's kind of moved up each year. What he needs to do this year is carry performance through the entire season, whether it was an injury, whether it was fatigue, whether it was the league adjusting to him, which is also entirely possible. A 2-month surge followed by 3+ months of not a whole lot. That's not enough, right? This is getting to the point now where we want to see production that's consistent through the entire season. And at that point, I think he'd really kind of cement himself as a future everyday shortstop. And then we can talk a little more about the upside, because I think in his case, prospects 2, 3, and 4 on the Blue Jays list are all high ceiling guys. But in his case, he does need to establish a little more of a floor. Yes, this guy can play every day at shortstop and at least get to some power, and then we'll see how the other aspects of his game evolve. Let's do that. That's what I'm looking for this year, hoping that then once he establishes more of a foundation of just hitting, then we can talk about what is the power upside, and does this guy eventually, say, again, be somebody who can make an all-star team?
Well, considering what we just discussed with JoJo Parker, right, and his age, and going to, like, I'm going to say your top 3, even though it's your 2 through 4, is Johnny King is the next one. Out of the 3 guys in that pocket, because Savage is clearly, it's the most important season for him because he'll be playing major league innings.
He's in the majors, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But out of those other 3 guys, would you say that this year is the most important for Arjun Nimala out of those 3?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
On multiple levels, but not the least of which is, right, he's got the most experience at this point. It'll actually be his 3rd full year in the system. And he'll be doing it at Double-A, which is a test. The jump to Double-A, the jump to the majors is the hardest by far, particularly for hitters. I would say the next most difficult jump for players in the minors is from A-ball to Double-A, because that just, a lot of guys get weeded out before then you get to Double-A, and you see, for a hitter, you see a lot more pitchers who have multiple off-speed pitches and a better idea of how to locate them, so that if, this isn't specific to Nimala, but if pitchers realize, oh, the slider down and away, he's going to chase that all day long. That's what you're going to see all the time, because you will face pitchers who have a good enough slider, sweeper, whatever, that they can consistently throw just enough outside the zone to get you to chase. That is the kind of thing that hitters tend to have to get around when they get to Double-A. And so production at that level will tell us a lot about how much he's maturing and how much he's able to make adjustments over the course of an entire season.
So the next guy who I mentioned, Johnny King, I learned who he was at the MLB trade deadline. And the reason being, the Blue Jays prospect guys were very excited that they didn't give up on him, that he was not moved out in a deal, that they kept Johnny King and that they were able to still add at the deadline. It was a coup for them. You have him as a just missed. So I'm going to say that he's close to a top 100 prospect. What does he have to do to, actually, this will be a 2-part question. What do you like about him, and what does he have to do in order for him to crack your top 100 next year?
I mean, it's a big, strong lefty who saw his velocity tick up last year. His breaking stuff really played last year. He's got a curveball that's, I think, a plus pitch for him right now. I do think it's particularly important for left-handed starters to show a good breaking ball, because the expectation is you're going to get lefties out. You need some kind of effective breaking pitch to be able to do that. He got there faster than I expected. When the Blue Jays took him, they were pretty candid. This is a projection guy. It might take a little while for him to fill out, for him to get to the quality of stuff we're talking about. Then he dominated in the complex. Then he moves to Low-A, and the biggest thing is he started walking way too many guys. And there's definitely some delivery issues that they're going to have to work on. Not unfixable, but he's a 19-year-old pitcher who's they're going to have to do a lot of work with him on just consistency in the delivery, consistency in the release point, so that he can throw more strikes and gets to more deception with his stuff. He has a changeup. He doesn't use it very much. That's not uncommon for high school pitchers. Generally, they don't need it. Like, you're doing a high school hitter a favor if you throw him a changeup. So that would be the second thing I would like to see him work on this year. I assume he starts in Low-A, given that he didn't have a ton of success there last year. There's no reason to rush him. I think let him go there and tell him your main 2 goals are getting more consistent with the delivery so you can throw strikes, bring that walk rate down. His walk rate was over 17% at the level. That's unplayable. And second is we want you to throw, they'll probably just say we want you to throw a minimum of 10 changeups a game just to try to improve your feel for the pitch, how to use it, how to grip it, what situations are right for deploying it.
Yeah. So out of these guys, though, like that we're looking at, because again, we're removing you Savage. And I'm going to get to Ricky Tiedemann in a second here, but I'm going to lump in Gage Stanifer with Johnny King, because again, these were the two names that kept popping up with the Blue Jays in terms of, hey, developmental success stories that these guys are having in their pitching ranks. You have like a discernible difference between King and between Stanifer, but how much do you view the actual gap between these two in terms of what they can accomplish this year?
If you asked me, a team comes to them and says, you got to give us one of those two, I'm giving up Stanifer without hesitation over King. And it's not just because they're 2 spots apart on the list. That's actually not that much, really.
Yeah.
But I think you discerned that from my descriptions, I see a lot more in King. I mean, Stanifer's 3 years older.
Yep.
I don't love the delivery. It is super short in back. I mean, I probably could fit it in the frame because it's so short, but you just don't see a lot of starters working with a delivery that short. You see a few. They have to really be able to repeat it. He hasn't gotten there yet. He did bring his walk rate way down last year. He picked up velocity last year. He did all the things you would want a pitcher, especially his age. That's the point, age 20, 21, 22. You do want to see this stuff start to tick up. The quality of his stuff, the quality of the strike throwing, you should start to see more progress. They don't have to do that at 19, but by the time I think this is his age 22 season, that stuff should be falling into place. I also noted, I said, I don't love the delivery, but it's also really worked for him so far. So I'm not trying to change anything. I'm just saying as a group, guys with those really short arm actions typically end up in a bullpen role or they get hurt, which I'm never rooting for, but just sort of that's what we see. Mm-hmm. You leave him as a starter until he demonstrates that he actually can't do it. There's also more of a chance that he does something in the big leagues this year.
Yeah.
Right? He will be starting in Double-A this year. Savage didn't even start in Double-A last year. He started in Low-A last year. So there's a very good chance Stanifer debuts in some role this year. So that might make him more of interest to the typical fan, even though you and I can look at this and say, long-term, I'd rather have King. Stanifer is more relevant if you're just asking about the 2026 team.
Well, why I think that it's a little bit more relevant is, listen, their starting pitching is very deep. Working under the assumption that they keep Jose Barrios and that Cody Ponce ends up starting the season in a bullpen role, or however they end up working this out. Maybe Shane Bieber isn't quite ready and they decide to let him work his way in with some innings. I don't know how it's going to completely operate, but they have a lot of starting pitching depth. So if I'm seeing Gage Stanifer start for this Blue Jays team, I think something has gone horrifically wrong, even if he does pitch extremely well. But is this someone then to you that does profile as a potential bullpen arm for them, like as early as 2026? Because that to me is a spot where I can very much project the Blue Jays needing help this year.
And I should just add, too, I love the Cody Ponce signing.
Yeah.
He's got to prove it. He's a very different guy than he was. I remember him as a prospect. I remember him in the draft. He came back from Korea, a completely different guy. I hope he makes 25 starts for them this year. In Stanifer's case, I think the best – I love introducing rookie pitchers to the majors in some kind of long relief role. I'm a product of my age. I remember Earl Weaver doing that in the late 70s and 80s. I've read his Weaver on Strategy. I look back at his track record in bringing pitchers along was really good. It's a great way to introduce guys to the majors in a controlled environment, get them used to working with your coaching staff, facing big league hitters. And every team needs long relief at some point. And because Stanifer has a history as a starter, he could come up and be a 2 to 3 inning reliever 2 to 3 times a week. You're always going to need that. Even your best starters are going to have that night for whatever reason. It's 2 2/3, and suddenly you need a lot out of the bullpen. Every team should have a long man, and I think every team, even if you're a contender like the Blue Jays, you should have a guy in that long man role who's somebody you're trying to bring along as a future starter, and that would be Stanifer.
Mm-hmm. But you do believe that he projects more as a future starter than as a reliever?
The delivery makes me hesitate, but the facts in front of us, the history in front of us says starter. If he throws more strikes, then I think he's going to stick as a starter until he's physically not able to do so. If that doesn't improve, and I question whether he can repeat the delivery enough to be able to do that, then it's a reliever. And I say with a lot of these guys, if they're physically able to start, but something about the stuff or the command or the control pushes them to the bullpen, don't make them a 1-inning guy. Say you're in the bullpen, but you're throwing 100 innings for us this year. It'll make the team better. It'll give you more flexibility. It gives that guy more opportunity, maybe to return to a starting role after more experience. So when I say I think the delivery makes him a reliever, that is not derogatory.
Yep.
It's just that might be the best way he can help the team and continue his development, especially if the strike throwing, the walk rate doesn't come down, the strike throwing doesn't improve as he continues to move up the ladder.
Still, though, again, he ends up being one of the most interesting guys on the list for that exact case. Is
Yes.
that he could end up helping a team that has World Series aspirations this year. And that brings me to
Agreed.
the number 5 on your list, the guy that I skipped, who to me is still one of the most compelling because, well, we're most familiar with him. Like, he's been around the longest out of all these prospects.
Forever.
Yeah, and he's also someone where you never want to have the if healthy attached to you, but I don't know. I've probably seen now conservatively over the last 3 years, like 150 Ricky Tiedemann trades where it's like, oh yeah, they could end up involving him in a deal. They could put Ricky Tiedemann in there. I have no idea what his value is because as you outline in this piece, he missed 2 months with an injury before he underwent Tommy John. He hasn't pitched since 2024. You always kind of think like with these injury prone guys, like, hey, well, they're going to have to be a bullpen arm because they just don't have the ability to stay healthy as a starting pitcher. But I also look at someone who's been this injury prone and go, well, do I trust him to stay healthy even as a relief pitcher at this point when he's going to be asked to throw hard repeatedly over small, short segments of time? I'm pretty curious just to start with him. Where do you think they're at with the health? Because, hey, underwent Tommy John. That's usually like a little bit of a boon for success or future successes. But when you've got that many already at this point, it seems really, really hard to bank on.
Well, I think he'd been pitching hurt for a while, and there were delivery questions on him going back to I don't know what year. I think I saw him in the fall league in 22 or 23. I'd seen him. I think that was the year I ended up seeing him 3 times. I'm like, this delivery is. Well, I actually thought it was worse for the shoulder than it was for the elbow. So
Yeah.
It's better if you're going to hurt something. If you're going to have surgery, it's much better to have it on the elbow. It's easier to repair with a higher success rate. I won't think he was probably pitching hurt for a while before that, so I do think we will probably see a better version of him. It's not that the surgery made him better per se, it's that it cleared up whatever was affecting him. I also wrote, I said, yeah, I think he's probably a reliever because he's never thrown 100 innings in a year in pro ball, ever. So it's hard to look at that guy and say, suddenly you're going to be a starter. But they should start him this year. They should start whatever level they choose. It kind of doesn't matter because it's essentially rehab wherever he starts. But you're going to start the year and you're going to go 2 innings or 40 pitches, and we're just going to ramp you up over the course of the year. Maybe by August or so, you're up to 5 innings, you're facing 18, 20 batters, something like that, where it's very gradual because it's controlled. When you start a guy, even if you think his future role may be in relief, when you're bringing a guy back, trying to build up his innings and return him from injury, put him in the easiest environment to control. You are a starter. You piggyback. You have another starter working with him. So Tiedemann throws 2, and then whoever else, depends on where he is, another starter is with him. It's okay. When Tiedemann comes out, you're coming in and you're throwing your 4 or 5 innings after that. And so that lets you develop 2 starters in one role because Tiedemann is going to be so restricted. I mean, when he was at his best, he looked like he was going to be a frontline starter, like maybe a number 2, because you're always like, is it really going to be enough strikes? Is it really going to be enough command? But at the same time, the stuff was so good. Was sort of forget it, right? Let him cook. He's gonna miss so many bats. It's gonna end up working out in the end. Now we're all the way back kind of to a square one where it's like, let's just get him healthy, see how hard he's throwing, see how the breaking stuff looks, and see how he does under a very controlled workload. Pitching, it's probably going to be once a week with the minor league schedule, and see how he looks after a couple months there, and then reassess. Do we stretch him out more? Make him a starter? Do we stretch him out a little bit and then hope that he comes up in September to be like David Price in 2008? I think it was 2008, where he debuted in the bullpen for the Rays, even though the goal was always have him a starter in the long term, because out of the bullpen, Price was super effective when they made their run to the World Series.
Yeah, it's really tricky when you read in your piece the reminder that the benchmark of his success was 2022 when he threw 78 innings. Like that,
a lot. Like
that
season.
That really sticks out, and you go, whew. And yet, because he's 23 years old, because there is market familiarity, and because he's 6'4" and throws 97 from the left side when he's healthy, it's hard not to dream on that in terms of what the immediate impact could be this season, especially considering, like, when I mentioned the Blue Jays bullpen, their lefty was Brendan Little last year, who had a lot of regular season success, but also had probably the most famous meltdown moment in their postseason run in Game 6 against the Seattle, or Game 5 against the Seattle Mariners, where it was just an absolute nightmare. Looked like a guy who absolutely didn't have it. And so if you're picking from these guys, like, again, you Savage out of it, in terms of who could actually have the biggest impact with the Blue Jays this season, is it still Ricky Tiedemann?
I mean, I think in that kind of high leverage-ish role I was describing, yes. Taking you Savage out of it, obviously. Like, Tiedemann's not going to start games for this team this year. I feel pretty confident in that, because even if they thought he was recovered enough to do so, that's going to be really hard to fit into a workload plan for him for the season. But he could come up and throw some high leverage innings for them later in the year. And teams do that all the time, right? They say, we still think this guy's a starter, but he can come up and be kind of a highly tactical weapon for our manager out of the bullpen at the very end of the season with an eye towards October. This is a team with October aspirations. You want a lefty like that. You probably want more than one in your bullpen going into the postseason. Yes, I absolutely think he can do that. And they should be managing his workload with that in mind, in addition to the primary thing is just his long-term health. But that's not a lot of innings at the end of the year. So you're saying we just got to save, whatever our number is, save about 20 or so for September, October, just in case. Just want to make sure he's available.
Well, and we also just saw the advantage of having a guy that comes up late in the season for you with real major league quality stuff that hasn't been in the trajectory machine and that other teams have not seen or game plan.
They haven't seen him. Yeah.
And so you're
hoping. Nobody's seen Tiedemann in years.
That's it. So it's like, keep him a mystery, and then hopefully you can unveil him at some point in September. Okay, last one from me. I'm not going to go through the rest of all these guys because I think that the drop-off becomes pretty significant after 6. But if you had to pick one of these guys out of 7 through 20 that you are like, actually, I enjoyed researching this guy, and like I think that there's a little bit more potential here than the rest. Like a year from now, I get you back on. You got to bank on one of these guys, 7 through 20, that rises the most. Not enters necessarily the top 5 or the top 10, whatever, but just that you would be banking on right now, Keith Law, of I think there's a lot more to give here in a long shot lottery odd kind of way. Who are you putting down the money?
So I will give it an answer to that. I will just mention Brandon Barriera.
Yeah.
That's the guy who, like, we all know who he is.
Yeah.
So that's not a particularly interesting
Another
selection.
Another
hurt guy. Just watch him. Watch for reports out of Florida in March. He could burst back onto the scene. The guy that answers your question, though, for me is Jake Cook, who was their second pick last year in the 3rd round. It's a crazy backstory. He was almost entirely a pitcher until last spring. He couldn't throw strikes. So Southern Miss was like, you can really run. Let's put you in the outfield. He was one of the fastest guys in the draft, but he didn't steal bases because he had almost no experience doing it. I mean, I watched video of him on first base. It's like, have you played baseball before? Like, it just doesn't look like a guy who has a lot of history there, but he's super athletic. He barely struck out despite, again, almost no experience as a hitter. It's kind of a handsy swing, but he's strong enough that he should be able to drive the ball more. I mean, he is like straight up raw material for player development to work with. Like, they dream of getting a guy like that, where the body's great. He's got this elite tool in the speed. He actually has a pretty good idea of the strike zone for a guy who's basically never hit, but his swing is not good. And it doesn't take advantage of his power, his strength at all. And he needs to learn the art of base running and base stealing. So that is a guy who I think, because he's older, he could make strides pretty quickly. And I know the Blue Jays, from talking to their draft guys and talking to player development, like, they see him this way. They're, no, we think the ceiling is super high here, but there's a lot of work to do. It's like I think I even compared him multiple times here. I said, it's like a high school player in a college player's body, which is pretty great. You don't see a lot of super toolsy athletic college position players because they tend to get drafted and sign out of high school. He's really unusual, and I think his backstory makes him kind of that guy where, yeah, it is a super long shot, but you could see that very rapid trajectory that you wouldn't typically see for a college draft pick.
Just from reading your piece, he was my choice as well, because you compared his speed to Chandler Simpson, and I went, oh boy, because that means if a guy has a great feel of the strike zone and he's got that level of speed, every walk is a double. Because for me, like, in my my major league flipping arounds, my guys that I really enjoy the highlights of, it's Chandler Simpson, where it's like a ground ball and you're like, that's an out for everyone. And then all of a sudden he's running down the line and he's safe and you go,
on first.
Ooh, that was
Billy
fun.
Hamilton was like that.
Right.
I remember seeing Billy Hamilton as a prospect, and they were trying to get him to switch hit, which I don't think ended up helping him in the end. But he would slap it to the left side, and you look there, and then you look there, and he's already on first. He had some of the fastest run times I've ever personally gotten. He's up there with Byron Buxton and young Mike Trout. Hard to remember what that was like. Guys who would be running. I mean, Trout's the other side, but like the guys who would be running, and you're like, did I do that wrong? Like, how is that possible for somebody to run that fast? But yeah, Cook is like that. They've just got there's so much untapped or under-tapped potential there that it is hard not to get excited about him. And he could be a zero. It's entirely possible. But these are the ones you want to bet on making huge improvements, just getting into a professional environment with a whole player development apparatus at their disposal.
Yeah, but that's also someone where you can start to dream on it a little bit more concretely if things start to work in a positive fashion, right? Like that's a couple of months of progress, and all of a sudden you're talking about it and going, oh my God, you might have had an absolute steal here. You might have hit an actual home run. Because, if you can get a guy with that kind of speed and that kind of strike zone recognition onto your baseball team as a lottery ticket, it's pretty exciting. So I'm glad that you brought that guy up. Keith, again, congrats on this tremendous amount of work. I look forward to, following your work throughout the season and hoping that the Blue Jays farm system continues to go in a more positive direction. And that the next time you're on, you're talking about what a success story Jake Cook is and that you called it. Thanks for doing this, man. Great to have you.
Yep, my pleasure.
Take care. Keith Law, senior baseball writer for The Athletic, former special assistant to the GM of the Toronto Blue Jays. And listen, I didn't go over Savage with him because I just think that it's pretty clear with Trey, right? So, hey, can you replicate the successes that you had? He was someone that was projected as more of a number 3 starter. People thought that he could move up fairly quickly, but it's a big ask for Trey. It's going to be a huge season for him. And some of the expectations are rightfully now oversized, but there's going to have to be a more consistent body of work that's put together when it comes to not walking guys and being able to pitch deeper into ball games. But who's not excited about Trey Savage? And I view him as, at this point, part of the reason of this segment that I wanted to do it is like, you want to know who these prospects are in terms of what their value could be, because the Jays are in a title contention window. So trading is kind of the hope that you build up enough that there's a trade that comes along where you see a real opportunity and you can make a move for a player. And it sounds like at the top, there's definitely a lot more encouraging stuff happening with this team. You do have 2 arms that are pretty interesting coming into this year that could end up being trade pieces. And Arjun Amala, that this is like talking to Keith, this is a pretty pivotal season for a guy that's one of the crown jewels of the Blue Jays organization, and that, maybe this is the year they finally get something out of Ricky Tiedemann if they can keep him healthy. All right, we'll take a break, come back, and it's time for What We Missed.
We're your home of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Hear the action on Sportsnet 590 The Fan, streaming on the Sportsnet app and at sportsnet.ca/590.
Golf Town's annual regrip event is back. Get 40% off golf grips from top brands like Golf Pride, Super Stroke, Jumbo Max, and more. Save today at one of Golf Town's 48 locations or golftown.com. While supplies last, some exclusions apply.
As Canada stares down economic uncertainty, we're ready with a plan to protect Ontario. We're fighting to defend every job, building new nuclear facilities, speeding up approvals, diversifying our trade, bringing opportunity and good jobs home. Because this province doesn't just sit back, we build. That's how we protect Ontario. Learn more at ontario.ca/protectontario. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
Tune in to The Raptor Show, weekdays from 11 a.m. to noon. Brought to you by McDonald's Raptor Chicken Nacho Poutine. Made with 100% Canadian-raised seasoned chicken, nacho cheese sauce, and tortilla strips. Available for a limited time.
Good news, Ontario. Lotto Max Dream Draws is back. Every Lotto Max ticket gets you a Dream Draws ticket with the chance to win one of over 750 guaranteed weekly prizes from $50 to $10,000. That's a Dream Draws ticket every time you purchase a Lotto Max ticket. So don't delay. Buy your Lotto Max ticket in store for your chance to win. Only until February 27th. Ontario only. Must be 18 plus. Offer excludes free play, self-serve terminals, online play, and is not valid with any other mode of purchase. Visit olg.ca/dreamdraws for more details.
Okay. First question. When does Desjardins Insurance suggest you switch to winter tires?
Below 7 degrees. Easy.
Nice. Next, what's a smart way to save money on your home insurance?
Switch to Desjardins Insurance and you could save up to $900 when you bundle home and auto. Easy.
Get insurance that's really big on care. Desjardins Insurance. Here for your home, auto, life, and business needs. Certain conditions apply.
Stella, about my new title.
Cupid's little helper in charge of paying the GST at Spence, Callum?
That's the one.
It'll end Valentine's Day.
Okay.
Callum, think of all the Canadians you're helping by making it more affordable to create their perfect diamond engagement ring.
A champion of tax relief.
Buy your engagement ring at Spence before Valentine's Day and save the 5% GST.
Spence.
Wow!
Across from Scarborough Town Centre, near Square One in Mississauga, and by Colossus Theatre in Vaughan.
It's cold out there, folks. Minus 35. Buckle up if you're going out today. And
leave the winter blues behind when you give and get away at Canadian Blood Services. Escape to a donor center this winter and leave feeling a little lighter, brighter, and better. And when you book an attend a blood or plasma appointment, you have a chance to win round-trip tickets for two, courtesy of Air Canada Foundation. No donation required. Give and get away this winter. Book at blood.ca/getaway and experience what you get when you give. Conditions apply. See full draw rules for details.
You love live sports, and you're obsessed with binging your new favorite shows.
We hear ya. We're going the distance on entertainment.
Watch it all with the City TV Plus and Sportsnet Plus bundle. Get the best content from the NHL, NBA, Toronto Blue Jays, City TV, Bravo, HGTV, Food Network, and more.
It does not get any bigger than this.
Bundle City TV Plus and Sportsnet Plus now from only $31.99 a month at sportsnetplus.ca.
Oh, this is so good.
A serious car accident can turn your life upside down, but a team of trusted legal and medical experts can get it back on track. I'm David Himmelfarb, HimPro's managing partner. Let our team of highly rated injury lawyers build you a winning case fast to deliver a big settlement. This proven system for success is the HimPro Advantage, and it's real. Call 833-4HIMPRO or visit himpro.ca today. HimPro, serious results for serious injuries fast.
HimPro.
The 75th annual Conn Smythe Sports Celebrities Dinner and Auction takes place Thursday, March 5th at Toronto's Fairmount Royal York Hotel. Join us as we honor Wendell Clark, one of hockey's most respected leaders. Meet celebrity guests including Doug Gilmour, Lloyd Moseby, and more. This milestone event raises critical funds for Easter Seals Ontario, helping kids with physical disabilities. Proudly presented by Bruce Power and the Provincial Building and Construction Trades Council of Ontario. Sponsorships and tickets are still available. Visit ConnSmytheDinner.com.
Imagine your business featured right here, reaching engaged listeners in your community. With Rogers Sports and Media's ad manager, you can advertise on premium radio, podcast, and digital platforms. Connect with trusted audiences who love our content. No ad buying experience needed. Our team can even produce your ad at no cost. Plus, we'll help you get started with up to $500 off your next campaign. Manage your radio, podcast, and digital advertising all in one place. Visit grow.rogersportsandmedia.com.
Hey, it's Ailish Forafar.
And I'm Justin Cuthbert.
Join us as we discuss the most important sports stories of the day and tee up the biggest games of the night.
It's the Fan Pregame, 6 p.m. weekdays on Sportsnet, Sportsnet 590 The Fan, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
You can always tell who's on the board and who's in studio just by the intro music for this segment. Brandon Brown is here. Armin is picking the tunes. What did we miss?
So sticking with baseball, we had a MLB Network first baseman ranking list kind of thing yesterday that went out.
Shredder.
The Shredder put it out.
What is the Shredder?
No idea. I had never heard that name before.
But no, but okay, I'm dead serious. Please, add JD Bunkis if you're listening live and you know what it is, because I actually tried to put in not a lot of effort, but enough. Just what is Shredder? Is this a formula? And I even asked a couple of baseball people, is this a formula or is this a guy who is called the Shredder that the MLB Network goes to come up with rankings and lists? But yeah, okay. So you know me. I got this whole thing about how I believe Toronto fans are a little too sensitive to the way that they are perceived by American media. It's a very strange dichotomy where a lot of Canadians that I know are like, screw America. What does America do? Hey, we don't like America. And then Americans speak on Canadian issues and they go like, it's a fold immediately on all of that principle. Anyway, the MLB Network puts together a list comprising the top 10 first basemen in Major League Baseball, and they have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. fifth
place.
Okay, so normally I actually like dissenting opinions because it's way more fun. Like the guy who picked Justin Herbert to be MVP, right? He took a beating on social media.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, I thought he actually outlined, if he had just picked him and it was a guy who lived in LA who covered the Chargers, I would have gone, yeah, that's brutal. Okay, but he actually outlined a very detailed case, which I took 10 minutes to read, and I thought it was a fair case. I think it's great not to just have monoculture where everybody just agrees with the same thing and we move on. And baseball in particular has a real problem with this because you're able to basically figure out from a pretty strong formulaic standpoint the value of players in comparison to other leagues. The conversations become boring. You can't have, like, when you say Vladdy or Judge, people go, well, Judge, WRC plus and his OPS. It's like, okay, yeah, conversation over.
Yeah.
So there isn't really a lot of fun debate. I like debate in baseball. All of this, oversensitivity to American media, no debates in baseball, no fun, too much groupthink, too much monoculture, too many people that are afraid of online backlash. All of those things, which I normally support, I can't support this. This is outrageous. This is just too much. This is where you go, like, again, I need to know what Shredder is to be able to properly direct my frustration with this. But the reality, the idea, the mere thought that the A's first baseman, what's his name?
Nick Kurtz.
Yeah. That any baseball executive, any fan, the Las Vegas A's or whatever they're going to be called, that they would say, we got to win a game or we got to get through a season, we got to get through a playoff run. You get Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or you get Nick Kurtz. And that a singular person on this planet would say, this is what's his name, Kellerman doing, I want Iguodala.
Yeah.
It's that level of insanity where you look at it and go, come on. What is it? Like, when you do this kind of stuff, again, I don't know if the Shredder is a guy. The Shredder, as far as I knew, was the villain of the Ninja Turtles. That's 100%. That's now there's a new, somehow more hated Shredder. Yeah. Like, if you had to pick which Shredder that you would back, I'm going with the Foot Clan way over going with this model. Yeah. I've always believed, like, when it comes to this stuff, I'm guessing it's a model, that it's not a guy.
That's my assumption as well.
Because it sounds like a model, and I haven't seen anybody put their face to this. And I think it was Brian Kenny that read the list. So why is Brian Kenny reading if it's not a model? My thought is, if you're using something that gives you that kind of information, because we went through this with QBR, if you recall, like when we've tried to get like quarterback rating and QBR, and then year over year you get stuff where it's like, well, actually, Geno Smith was the best, and you go, nah, well, let's toss this.
I think you're right. Like in baseball and other sports, like for some reason, baseball has just decided that the numbers are kind of everything, whereas football, so many people are the eye test still, and they want to have discussions about what they think is more valuable. Or
I wish baseball had a little bit more eye test, but that's not what this is.
Yeah,
you're saying that this 22-year-old in Oakland, wish he was in Oakland, a guy with one season under his belt is better than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Like, congrats, man, you won Rookie of the Year. Like, that's good, but no. Also, I'm not taking Matt Olson over Vladdy, who was ahead of him on the list. And frankly, all due respect, I'm not taking Freddie Freeman over Vladimir Guerrero Jr. either.
Honestly, to me, that was the biggest surprise, was that he topped the list. It was, I think, 5th time in the last 6 years, which, obviously he's been a great player for most of his career. But at this point, we saw him in the World Series.
Yeah,
how impactful is he, right?
That's just it. Yeah. If the Dodgers could have flipped those two guys in the World Series, you don't think they're doing it? You don't think they're saying, like, hey, man, Freddie, you're as clutch as they come, but we're flipping you for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., that they're not switching dugouts immediately? Like, come on, man. Yeah. Who's the other one ahead of Vlad?
It was Bryce Harper at 4.
Right. Yeah. Fine. Like, have that discussion. But to me, it's between those two guys. Anyway, all due respect to the rookie who had a phenomenal season, OPS over 1,000. Yeah, it's insane. And again, if you're getting online and you're tweeting about it all day, like, you gave them what they wanted. So everything like this was always my Skip Bayless thing. Like, the people who would quote tweet Skip Bayless, you don't look smart because you're quote tweeting this and replying to it. This was the trick. This was the trap all along. I don't get why people do that too, where they reply to stuff and they go, this is engagement farming. It's like, well, then you did it. you engagement farmed it. What are you doing? Just leave it alone. Let it be.
They can't see the error of their ways on that one.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
Pretty eventful night in the NBA last night. There were 2 fights in 2 separate games. Pistons Hornets had a pretty big one that
was a good one.
A lot of visibility there, and then the Hawks and Timberwolves were also kind of scuffling in the fourth quarter of their game.
Nothing.
Did you have any thoughts about kind of where this is all coming from?
No, I don't think it's come from anything. But I will say this is like Stewart on the Pistons. He's going to get the biggest suspension out of everybody because he leaves the bench. And if you're old like me, you know about the Phoenix Suns and the controversy why Steve Nash maybe doesn't have a championship ring is because guys left the bench during a fight. So not only to leave the bench, but to go down the floor and try to throw haymakers. There's a famous fight, a guy named Kermit Washington who punched, I believe, Kurt Rambis in the face in an NBA game when there used to be fights in the NBA. And it pretty much stopped NBA fights from happening because Kermit destroyed the jaw of Kurt Rambis and almost killed him. No, it wasn't Kurt Rambis. It was, damn it, who's the Rockets' old? Rudy Tomjanovich. He cracked him in the jaw, and basically they looked at this and they were like, hey, guys who are this big shouldn't be like hitting each other when they're wearing sneakers. It's really dangerous. Isaiah Stewart has really established himself as like the number one don't try me guy in the NBA. And I actually listen, I get it. You can't have NBA players fight. There's just too much liability. Too much can go wrong. Yeah. But I kind of like having the one psycho in the league who's just like, I'll risk it all, baby. I'll stand up for a teammate. And to me, there actually is something about the Pistons with their toughness that I like. I like that they used to be the bad boy Pistons. I like that toughness has always been ingrained with their franchise. And you know me, I love it when teams play to their city's identity. And so this guy's going to take a suspension. But to me, it's kind of like a worthy one to keep that ethos of the Pistons are the tough team, the don't mess with us team. We've got the real enforcer. We're not just going to push and shove. We're going to do the damn thing. So hell yeah, Pistons. I like it. We'll see you tomorrow.
Golf Town's annual regrip event is back. Get 40% off golf grips from top brands like Golf Pride, Super Stroke, Jumbo Max, and more. Save today at one of Golf Town's 48 locations or golftown.com. While supplies last, some exclusions apply.
Experience casino like never before at Bet365.
Join the action and play all your favorite games. You can win daily with their exclusive game Prize Matcher. Check out their awesome table games and face off against a real, live dealer. And play unique games that you simply can't get anywhere else.
Download the app, play casino, and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you or someone you know has concerns about gambling, visit connexontario.ca. T&Cs apply.
It's not a birthday without balloons. It's not Valentine's without candy. It's not the big game snack table without plates. And with thousands of products under $5, it's not a party till you stopped at Party City. Party City, Canada. Now it's a party.
Game night at your place? Grab 12 chicken wings or boneless poppers from Pizzaville for just $13.73. Make it even hotter with 2 hot honey dips for only $2 more. Order at pizzaville.ca.